Hello, everyone. Welcome in to Deservingly You. Appreciate it. Coming to you from somewhere in Tennessee. I don't even know. 98 degrees. I got in here in such a hurry and just pulled into this truck stop so I could be here for everyone, and myself. So I appreciate you being here, showing up, taking and just listening in.
All right.
Hope you get something out of it.
Yep. So yeah, let us know where you guys are watching from, what location, and what's the temperature where you are where you're calling in from, where you're watching from. Because it got up to 107 or 8 here to this last week. But it's weird. I've acclimated. I feel like I've acclimated pretty well, so it doesn't feel like it's over 100 degrees. It feels more like it's about like 85, 90.
That's the dry heat. I'm in the humidity right now. I definitely can feel that.
Yep.
There may be a bit of an interruption because I'm riding with somebody this week. He's in taking a shower. He may just pop in. So that's all that'll be.
We'll make sure to remember to mute you, but I've got you ready to mute too. So if we need to, so should we dive in?
Yes. Take it away, my love.
All right, thank you. So this is Deservingly You, that space where we talk about what it can take to rebuild your life after systems of control and learn how to live our lives self-led. I'm Shannon Avery Briggs. I'm an ex-JW. I'm also a certified transformational resilience coach, co-founder of Luminous Connections and the Exit Generation Movement. Now, last week we talked about when life shows up. We kind of shared some of our personal stories of kind of how crazy our life was and about giving yourself permission to take a break. And tonight we're going to go to something that makes that break, making that break, giving room for it. And we're going to talk about what we may have actually lost coming out of the organization. And to be honest, this is one that I was sitting with all week because the more that I looked at it, the bigger it got.
Yeah. And I'm John Briggs, also transformational resilience coach. Just introduce myself. Appreciate you being here. I'm also co-founder of Luminous Connections. And yeah, I've been sitting with this one, with it too. This week it was heavy for me, and I didn't see it coming. When it did, and we'll get into that later. But the short version is that I spent a few days carrying something I didn't even realize that I was, in fact, carrying it with me. And that's pretty much the whole show tonight. So, buckle in.
So, like we said, let us know where you're watching from and what temperature it is. And if conversations like this matter to you, please share, like, and subscribe. Hit notify, and let's go ahead and dive into it. So we always want to set the space before we go into the conversation, because what we do here is we create a space for reflection and curiosity. We want to be able to have that self-awareness over judgment and awareness over self-criticism. And so we look at what's happening within each of us right now. And what this does is that it can help us to move forward with a little bit more clarity. So feel free to use the chat, share what stands out, share what what may surface with you.
And if something lands for you tonight, and you don't have words for it, you don't need the words for them. Just notice it, and be aware. And if all you can do is just listen, that's wonderful. That counts as well. But some of you, like all of us, are just worn down at times. Remember, grab a notebook, write some questions down for later or for some other time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all that crazy jazz.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Alrighty. So once again, just to kind of orient where we're at before we dive into the topic tonight, because the work can change depending on where we're at on our path and where we're at on that journey. And so this is the Exit Generation Roadmap. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But these are 5 phases that John and I went through and kind of looked at and said, what do people experience as they're going through that exit? And so we broke it down to 5 phases. Tonight we're in phase 2, that allow the grief.
Yeah. And I want to say something about that, about what phase 2 actually is, because often people try to skip over it. Pierce the phase 1, piercing the illusion there. You see the system for what it was, right? And then in that part, it almost feels good. You could say there's relief and finally seeing it clearly. And then phase 2 is where it stops feeling good there. And because now you have to feel what's seeing it, and seeing it clearly, what it's actually costing you.
Yeah.
As things start to unravel.
Yeah, and those are 2 different things: knowing that it was wrong and grieving what it took. So you can be completely sure, that you did the right thing in leaving, and still be wrecked by what it cost you. And we can experience this both at the same time. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So we also want to talk about who might be watching this, because there may be 2 different types of people. Some of you may have just woke up, whether it's weeks ago, days ago, even, and you may feel raw. You may not even be able to name what you're feeling yet. You just know that something is wrong.
And then there's the rest of us. We're out for a little while, functioning. We got the job. We got the routine down. We got a life that mostly works. Not perfect, and you'd swear you've handled it until something knocks the wind out of you. Okay, and it comes out of nowhere, out of left field on a Tuesday, and you can't figure out why. Okay, that was me this week, and I'll get there. We'll visit that in a minute.
Yeah. And here's what I don't want anybody to be doing as you're watching this. Don't rank yourself. The person that just got out, you're not behind. And the person who's been out for 10 years, you're not ahead. Now, we've watched people who've been out for a decade get leveled by something that they were sure that they had already dealt with. That same pain, but you're just a different spot on the road. Wherever you are right now, you're in the right spot for you. So here's the discussion that we're going to be this path that we're going to be going down tonight. By the end, hopefully, I want you to understand why this grief may not have moved for you. And this doesn't mean that you're broken in any means, but there could be a reason. And the other thing, too, is that it's not your fault.
And we're going to name the pattern that keeps it stuck. Okay, what other people do to keep it frozen? That keeps it frozen, yeah. And what we do to ourselves, which might be the bigger one. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to walk out of here, hopefully, with a different perspective on the language of the losses. And the people in your life, they may not have that category to really be able to understand. And that can be really heavy, because you may have been grieving in a room that that's full of people who they just don't see it. They don't understand what you've been grieving.
Exactly, right? And then one thing you can actually do tonight, not some sort of worksheet or homework, just one little thing. Now, you already knew what you lost, okay? Tonight we just stopped letting you shrink it, you could say.
Yeah. So, how does that sound for a conversation tonight? Let us know in the chat if you think that this is we're on the right track. So we want to start with why it may be stuck, why that feeling of being stuck in the grief, and why it's not what most people assume. Now, it's not that you're doing grief wrong. You can't do grief wrong, but grief does need to be witnessed to move. And almost nobody in your life, or very few, especially as you're coming out of this high controlled environment, very few have a category to like really grasp what you've lost.
We can look at people sometimes and say, at least you're free now. You still have us. You chose to leave. And here's what makes it complicated. A lot of people saying this may care about you and love you. But they mean well and they're not trying to hurt you. So they have good intentions.
Yeah. But they don't have the map per se. And to them, it may just look like, well, you just left a religion and you changed your mind about the church.
Yeah.
They don't grasp that you may have lost every friend that you had since you were a kid in just a single afternoon.
Yeah.
And that your own mother might be 30 minutes away and treats you like you're already gone. Or that your body goes quiet on a Thursday night. I remember this initially when we first left. It's like, ooh, we should be doing something on those nights, because that was the meeting night for those 30 years. Yeah. John Mars said every relationship was tied to the world. Yep, absolutely.
So, did you want me to go on, Shannon?
So, what were you gonna say something about what they kind of the way that they act after those years, having that meeting for years?
Well, yeah, it just seems like something's missing during the week.
Yeah.
Like I need to have a Tuesday or a Thursday night to do something with.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a hole in the week there.
Yeah. But, and the people that are trying to like support you and stuff, they may try and say something to make you feel better, and you may walk away actually feeling worse. And it's not because they're stupid or they're bad people or anything like that, but they haven't lost a world the way that we have as we leave an organization like this.
Yeah, they want to bring you to their church or their thing. Mm-hmm. And it's all, nothing to be offended about. Just like I said, they have good intentions normally.
Yeah. And here's where it may get harder. So after you hear the small version enough times, you may start even talking to yourself about it. Start saying it to yourself. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Other people have had it worse. I should be over this by now. And so if you've said any of that to yourself, drop that in the chat, just so you can see that you're not the only one that has gone through that.
Yeah, if I find myself saying that to myself, I should be over this by now, get over it. I have to ask myself in the next sentence or thought, what haven't I done in order to make that happen? What haven't I processed? So I'd like to tell you what happened to me this week. I'm out on the road right now, And I'm a new job. I'm in training and driving a truck. And a few days ago, I just got flattened, and I didn't really realize what was happening. And until hindsight, it's 2020. And I couldn't shake it. I couldn't focus. I was a lot of tears, and I did what I always do. I just pushed through, sucked it up, And I told myself it's the new schedule. I told myself I was tired. I told myself I missed home, and I just broke down. And then it hit me what this week was. What I knew what last week was, but this week is my son's birthday. Yesterday was, and he actually died on the 11th of June. But his birthday is also very. I despise June 11th, but June 20th is very endearing to me, and very close to my heart. My favorite day of the year. So I wasn't as tired as much as I was grieving. I didn't even realize it. Didn't have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
Until the next day or later that evening. Yeah.
I'd like to, yeah. And I'd like to ask everybody to kind of sit with that and what that means. Because when Tomas died, the whole world had a category for it. And people may have struggled, but they had often something to say. They, they could use his name. But at that time, nobody ever told me or John, well, at least you're free now. And he had every bit of validation that a person can get for a loss like that. And yet, even with that situation ended up going underground. And it still ended up, running quiet until that day on the calendar actually caused it to surface.
Yeah.
Linda talked about how the body remembers even when you don't realize it.
Yes. Yeah. Certain times of the year, certain smells, songs, stuff like that can trigger things. So where were we? So that's
So
right.
we were talking about how the grief moves underneath.
Yeah. Right. So that's the part I want you to hear. Even with all the support in the world, grief still moves underneath you until you name it. Right? And so if you're carrying a loss that nobody even will call a loss, of course it's still sitting there, right? And you've been doing the hardest version of this with the least amount of help.
The other thing too is that this none of it means that you failed by any means. And it means that there was minimizing. It was actually doing its job within the organization, and even like after we stepped out, the way that people were reacting to us and stuff. So it keeps in there, like they would keep you small, and by doing that, it kept you safe. But when we learn to name our pain too loudly, that can draw, quote, correction or attention, and sometimes even would draw draw shunning. And so you learned to actually manage that. And like John had talked about, earlier when he experienced this earlier this week, he just pushed through. And so sometimes that pattern doesn't stop just because we walk out the door. And so tonight what we want to do is we want to invite a new perspective.
There's something Shannon and I both know and still have to remind ourselves of. Even doing this work here, even knowing we know that grief still will surface, unexpectedly, and doesn't check whether you've got the credentials, right? So we remind ourselves of certain things, like, and we want to remind you that grief doesn't get named. If it doesn't get named, it doesn't go away. And it doesn't dissolve. It just keeps circulating over and over again.
And you probably know where some of this stuff ends up showing up, right? It can show up in your sleep. You get that 2 a.m. wake up where your mind just won't let you rest and go back to sleep. It may show up in your relationships, and you may be waiting for the thing to go wrong before it does. Stuff like this also can show up in your day, because our stress level ends up going up. And so there's that low kind of hum underneath of everything. And the weight that you can't quite point at, just like the one that John couldn't point at earlier this week on the road.
Yeah. And if you just woke up, not from a deep sleep, but from a high control environment, this is why what you're feeling makes sense. Okay. If you've been out for years, though, this is why it's still there. And naming it doesn't mean you'll never feel grief again, right? That's not the goal. That's not realistic human nature. But the goal is to learn to move through it, okay? To process it, to manage it, instead of it managing you.
Yeah, so I'm curious if other people have thought about that, about grief, basically like circulating in our lives, because too, if we don't learn to process it and manage it in this way, then it can compound. And so that's why we want to be able to learn ways to be able to recognize it, to name it, and to process it and to manage it so it doesn't compound. So we thought that we would walk through a few of these. Before we do, we just have 6 of them on the screen. This isn't the list. There are many, many griefs that we can go through. This is just an example. And there might be one that's heaviest for you, might not be up there, and that's okay. Maybe as we go through these, it can help you find that piece, that grief of yours that is heaviest to you.
Yeah, and here's why that this matters. Every one of these is a substantial and real loss. Okay, take a look here. Not you changed your mind about church, as some may see it. Now you left the whole world. Okay, most people out here, have a category for that.
So let's take a closer look at a couple of them. Let's look at certainty, because somebody in our community described this to me like a voided warranty, and that really stuck with me, because that's what it can feel like, that you didn't just lose what you believed, you lost the answers to all of it. What was true, what was right, what happens when you die. And here's the part that many inexperience, that what they may not understand. We didn't just lose the answers. we had to suddenly hold all the questions ourselves with nothing underneath it, like that safety net that we experienced while we were in the organization, that was gone now.
And think about what that really is or was. You used to be able to pray, okay, hand it over. There's some sort of, personally, I guess I should say, this is how I'm thinking. I used to be able to pray, hand it over, trust that somebody was on the other end going to work it out, okay, and I would get blessed, days of pleading for direction, for the Holy Spirit, to be blessed with that, for help. And then one day there's nobody there to hand it to you anymore. Okay? Just up in smoke, gone. I'm sure, I know that I'm not the only one who thinks that way. I know not everyone does, but this is definitely resonates with me. So that guarantee that it was all going to be okay, that's a real thing. And everybody's on their own journey, but whatever that looks like for you, that's real. And it's a real thing to lose, just like almost overnight.
Yeah. And John, thank you too for bringing that up, that this isn't about like each individual beliefs or anything like that, because there are some people that still practice prayer, and it does give them it gives them a sense of peace. But there was something about being within that organization that it's like we had all the answers before. And so there was like this false sense of security that we had, that when we walked out, we no longer had that. So if this one hits you, make sure that you sit with it, and know too that you're not being dramatic or failing to get over it. Like John said, this was a real loss, and you're allowed to feel it.
And then there's the last one there, yourself. This is the one underneath all of them for me personally. Because in there we were told we were good for nothing, right? Worthless slaves, undeserved kindness, all that jazz. Never enough, no matter how much we did. And and you carry that for so long, it stops sounding like them, and it just sounds like the truth about you. Mm-hmm. Right? If you tell somebody they're worthless long enough, they're going to believe it. And I believe that was never enough for most of my entire life. I didn't deserve anything good. That resonates so true for me.
Yeah. And here's a thought I would invite you to consider for a second. That worthlessness, that was installed. It was never the truth about you. There is a you that's underneath all of that, who was always worthy. That deservingly you. And here's a thing, likely, you may not have been allowed to do in there is, being able to have that sense and that feeling that you were worthy. But now you do get to want things now, and you get to want real things, and you get to love, and you get to matter. And this time, all of that is yours. It's not assigned to you. It's not performed for anybody. But for the first time, you get to live and love and matter for real.
Absolutely. So whatever your griefs are, whatever's sitting heaviest on you tonight or this week, right? That's not you left a religion, right? That's a whole life. And every piece of it is worth grieving, okay, and processing through. And every piece of it is worth getting back, in some shape or form, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah. So there is a lot on here. When I was putting this material together, we all know that we come out of this organization and we have lost, and we have huge losses. But I really wanted to take a look at how, like, a kind of a different perspective of them, because it wasn't, the loss about, it's not just about losing community, for example. It's like you're losing that community because people who loved you are told that erasing you is love. And so there's a couple of different losses there to grieve. Not only the community, but the warped sense of love.
It's even worse, I think. It could be worse. Depends on the individual. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was losing my identity was worse in the long run than anybody I had that turned their back on me, because I realized that their love was conditional, and I mourned them. I still love them, but I'm kind of through that. But I'm still trying to figure out who I am.
Yeah, I think
that's what.
Yeah, I actually had identity when I was putting this together. Identity was one of them that I had on there, but certainty stood out to me. You kind of, what you said too kind of makes me think of your voice. Because when I was thinking about that with the voice, I was thinking about my own personal experience, and what part of the piece that I was grieving is that shutdown. My voice is shut down because they would rather believe that I'm warped and I'm mentally ill and I'm whatever the organization says that they are. They're mentally. Lyndall probably knows what the term is, but
mentally deranged.
Something along that line. But it's like I lose my voice because they believe that I've been deceived, instead of really hearing about my journey and hearing about how and why I ended up coming to this decision, why you and I chose to walk away from the organization. And so that is a piece for me that I felt there was grief around, was about losing that voice. Does that make sense? Are these kind of new ideas for people in regards to grief? Mentally diseased. Yes, Linda, that was what it was.
Yep. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious if these are kind of new ideas. A lot of times too, you hear in the community about how many people will grieve their past, but it's not even necessarily, part of it is the past, but here you gave everything and you believed it wholeheartedly, and you got up when you didn't want to, and then to come and find out that it was actually a lie. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this. It's not just about leaving a religion. These are kind of a different twist on the things that we experience and these griefs that we go through. And then like the future piece, you're that's almost like a double-edged knife, with here we're held back from a future where we could become the best of who we can be, all for a paradise that didn't come. So anyway, let us know in the chat if this resonates with you. So here's another aspect of this, is that something that you may not have considered yet is that you may be waiting. You may have been waiting, maybe without even knowing it, and waiting for somebody, anybody, to finally tell you, yes, that was real. What you went through was real.
And that waiting, can be very quiet. It sits underneath the functioning, you could say, underneath the managing, underneath the pushing through, and a part of it holding you or holding out for one person to finally say it back to you. All of it out loud. All at once. And most people don't even know they're doing it until somebody points it out to them.
Yeah. So, like we said, you may be waiting. You may not even realize that you might be waiting for that person to say, yep, that was real. And the hard part is that person may never ever come. But on the flip side, you don't have to keep waiting for that. And that's one of the things that we learn as we start working on our own personal development, is that we don't have to have that external validation in order to acknowledge to ourselves, that this was real, that we went through.
So here's a thought we'd like to invite you to consider tonight. You can be the first witness to your own loss. Notice that there. That brilliant caption.
Yeah. You don't need to have anybody else to confirm what you already know happened. It doesn't have to be a former friend or a family member, or even somebody that you meet now. That validation that you've been waiting for, and you're actually allowed to give it to yourself, whether you realize that or not. And that was one of the things that I had to learn. Actually, it's like John and I reflect on a lot of the different challenges that we've gone through and the lessons and stuff. This was one of the things that I learned through the cancer journey, believe it or not, to validate what I had felt and what I had experienced through my life. And so you're allowed to give that to yourself.
And we realize that may sound like some sort of runner-up prize, but like you're settling for less than what you wanted, but that's not. That's not settling. That's agency. That's you taking back something that got taken from you a long time ago. Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody on here relates to that too, about that sense of agency and being able to take that back into your own ownership. I'd love to see you guys put that up in the chat. So here's one of the things that this is a practice. It's not a worksheet or anything like that. It's just something that we can do, is naming something that you lost. You can do it out loud or write it on a paper. Here's the other thing, is you can draw it out, you can paint it out, dance it out. For me, I love to listen to music. And so I like to listen to songs that will help me to feel and process that grief, and helps me to bring it to the surface so that I can cry it out if I need to. Any of this type of thing can help you to work through some of that grief. Will it be perfect? No, none of this is perfect, but it's like practicing different things and figuring out what will work for you.
Yeah. And then you follow it up with just one line. So, like, that was real. I'm allowed to grieve. That's that sort of line. And that's it. I know it sounds small, but say it out loud just one time. Okay? And then notice what your body does. Because the subconscious believes whatever you say is absolute fact. And your body will respond in kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. That type of thing.
And so instead of like what we were talking about earlier with the grief, like circulating, this can help you to be able to get out of that cycling. And it doesn't mean that we're wallowing in grief or anything like that. But a lot of us were taught that feeling something means that we're drowning in it. But this is actually the opposite. This is that beginning of having somewhere to go. And like I've said several times, this isn't perfect by any means. You don't have to do it perfectly, but we invite you to give it a try and see what ends up happening. I am curious, John. I'm going to put you on the spot here just for a second. We're going to take you back to the moment this week when you did recognize what was happening. What happened after you recognized where that grief was coming, what was going on, and where the grief was coming from? What happened?
Well, I calmed down. I didn't feel like bawling anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I recognized it as a process. There's unprocessed grief. Will keep coming back, and never get better. Although I'm not saying you'll ever be over it.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be. It's not perfect. But people that suppress grief and other emotions with alcohol and drugs or whatever it may be, it just keeps coming back. And so what happened was I was able to recognize it, for one, put a name to it, and put it to bed, at least for the day.
So, yeah. So would you say that that's like where the work begins?
Being aware, yes. When, just putting a name to it, recognizing, and instead of letting things, so many people just go through life in a blur and things are going over their head, right by them, they don't see it, and they're a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, that was me, and I've seen it in other people. I'll just say it. I don't judge it.
Uh-oh.
We're okay.
Wow. So,
okay.
I'm gonna mute you for a second. So if anybody would like to come up on the stage and share any thoughts or anything like that from the episode, let me get the link here. We'd love to hear from you guys and see if this is relating to. And we'll see if Johnny's like better now. Are you better? Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, I put the link to the StreamYard up there. So if anybody would like to come up and kind of share their thoughts about the topic tonight, we'd love to hear what you guys think. And the other thing too, while we're waiting to see if anybody comes up, we are planning to. We've started a network of other professionals, and we are planning to have other folks come and share about the way that they help others with grief, as well as continue these sessions as well. So we want to make sure that you guys come back too when you can. All right. Well, we'll move on, and if somebody does want to come up, we can pause it. So here's the thing about tonight. You know, you can feel something for an hour, and then you close the app, you close the episode, and you can let it fade by morning. And we've all done that. Or you can do the thing that actually changes people. You can show up and you can say it out loud in a room of people who get this, who understand it.
And because naming it alone in your head is just a start, but naming it out loud, with people who don't flinch when you say it, right? That's where it moves. Things begin to shift, and that's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who actually heal. Okay, it's not talent; it's how strong you are. It's not how strong you are, I should say. It's who shows up and ready to do the work.
And ultimately, we want you to show up. So tomorrow, we're going to keep the conversation going in the Exit Generation. Find us on Facebook. It's tomorrow, the 22nd, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And these are the 5 questions that we're going to be having in conversation tomorrow. So don't let this be just one more thing that you felt and you forgot. We invite you to come do the work, and we would love to have you there.
Wow.
And we do repost these questions in the Facebook group, so you can have them handy. So it's a little bit, because I know sometimes it can get a little bit uncomfortable not remembering. Okay, and we've got Linda. I'm going to bring Linda up.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you for
here.
talking. Thank you for having today's show.
Oh,
I think this is a really good subject because we do mourn things, and that's normal. You know what I'm saying? And when we were part of the organization, even at the funeral of someone that we loved that died, or just someone we knew of, it's as though we would be silenced by words coming at us that would say, we'll see them in the new system, as if crying today or mourning today is not even deserved, or that not even the thing to do, when it really is the thing to do. That's the whole purpose of a funeral or a memorial. It's to take time aside to be able to mourn, and to have those that support you be there with you in this time, you know?
Yeah. I remember that was one of the things that I was really angry about with when my mother passed away, because I wanted to hear what people appreciated about her.
Yeah.
But I hated hearing, oh, well, you've got the hope of the resurrection.
Instead, it turned into a talk for an advertisement for the organization.
Yes.
Is what they are.
I've literally looked at the paper that's written out, the guideline for the funeral for a Jehovah's Witness brother to do. And they maybe give 10, maybe 15 minutes talking about the beloved one that has just, passed or crossed over. And mainly they will only talk about who they were in the organization, what they did for the organization, which meant they were a great Christian, But I like that John was talking about, when we do mourn, it's not a one and done, we're now done with it. It'll come up at times. Even when you do take a good amount of time to be in it, when you can tell it's flushing up,
Mm-hmm.
It'll just turn up later. I had a friend who was killed by William Bonin, the freeway killer of Los Angeles.
Wow.
And so he was a victim of this famous frickin' serial killer, okay?
Uh-huh.
And because of that, he was left behind. He went out to Hollywood with a couple of friends. And so today, whoever goes with me out anywhere comes home with me. I'm really about that. Unless you can convince me, whoever you're leaving with is, and I need their phone number, I'm just I've always been the designated driver. But that was also part of like other things that went down when I was like 16 that it led to kind of a mini breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And also too, we've been told that kids or teenagers or whatever, you can't really diagnose them because they already are narcissistic. They're just, thinking about themselves. And so you're not going to get a good reading is what I've heard. So I can confirm that because, and this was his name is Charles Miranda.
Mm.
And so we take a few friends from my school. We go to the church. We have to sit in the car. My friends get to go in the church. That's freaking, okay, whatever. We don't want to displease Jehovah. Let's just sit here in the dang car. Okay.
Oh my
but
goodness.
then after that, we go to the graveside, and beautiful coffin. And next thing I know, I'm watching his father throw himself on the coffin and starting to cry and saying, I'm so sorry. And I looked at that and went, oh, that's right. He has a family that would be mourning too. Like, I didn't think past myself. I really was just in that zone of, I was only thinking, I couldn't look past that. It took something that traumatic for me to have this empathy for them. Not that I wouldn't have if I would have thought about it, but I didn't think about it. I was really about how it was affecting me. It was quite horrendous.
So when you do think though about how it's affecting you, did you find yourself, like the point that we were bringing out tonight was about having the external validation? Is that something that you would normally be looking for? Or
external validation, like when I bring him up or he comes up like in conversation like we're doing now?
Yeah.
I don't think I was looking for that. I was just thinking about a loved one that was a child of someone's, you know what I mean? And that our kids are not supposed to go before us. It's just what I'm thinking about. Right. But sure, you can empathize. I don't think I'm looking for a validation. Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm just kind of curious.
Not in this moment right now, but you're talking about at the time that you were describing, Linda? Is that what you meant, Shannon? Is that what you meant, Shannon, at that time?
Yeah. I'm getting feedback on my end.
Uh-oh.
So, Johnny, do you have the channel on?
No.
Linda, are you still on Facebook? I mean, are you still on YouTube?
No, but I physically stopped the video before I came over here. Okay. Are you hearing an echo from me?
That's kind of what it sounds like, is an echo from another one, and I don't believe that I have it going, and I'm sure that I don't have it going somewhere. So anyway, I'll try
want me to leave and come back? See if it makes a difference?
If you guys aren't hearing it.
I'm not.
Okay.
But I know it can be disturbing if you are.
Yeah. Sometimes when we're grieving, especially with something No.
No?
Something that is that big we can look for external validation for it. And so that was one of the points that we were bringing out tonight, was making sure that you validate it yourself.
Okay, now I hear what you're saying.
Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah. Others might not be caring, and oh, that must have been really horrible. I'm sorry you went through that. We actually can do that for ourselves. That's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Like a form of self-care. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to check out and come back.
Okay.
I guess I'll wait until he's back before we move on.
I absolutely love the fact that he's on the road wherever, and he still tunes in and does this with us.
Yeah.
That's real dedication, and sometimes he can't, and that's all good too. But, I appreciate that.
We didn't know until 10 minutes before if he was
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, alrighty. Any other thoughts, Linda?
No, that's it.
Right. Okay, I want to make sure we'll get back to the end of this, and I'm going to take you off.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. So once again, it's like, come and join us tomorrow on the in our group in the breakout session. We'd love to have you guys, and we've had really, really interesting conversations in there. So here's what we covered tonight, what we walked through. We talked about the fact that there may be two types of people in this room. Whoever you are, this was definitely for you.
Definitely, yeah. You have a category for this. The people that you may have handed you a smaller version of your loss, right? And after a while, you may have to. It may have made sense at the time, and that can stop now. Okay.
And if you don't get the handed a smaller version of your loss, I remember, like, one of the things when we first woke up, I was talking to a friend of ours, and I was talking about the fact that how prominent domestic violence is in organizations, and how in the organization, as well as the drug and alcohol abuse, well, especially alcohol abuse and stuff like that, and how coming out of the high controlled environment, how that brings on a different facet. And I remember when I was sharing the complications of this with a friend of mine and John's, was like, oh yeah, well, there's domestic violence everywhere. And so that's what we mean. Like when people hand you a smaller version of that loss, they can't grasp like what is all entailed. And so when we have that unnamed grief, it can circulate, and it can show up in your sleep, in your relationships, that low hum underneath the day, like John had talked about earlier this week. And here's the other thing, though, is that it won't leave on its own. We have to learn how to work through this and manage the grief that we go through.
And you don't have to wait either. Okay, you can be the first witness to your own loss, and that's where this turns. Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Instead of like just sitting back like and feeling it, it's like really being able to take a look at it and name it and say, yes, this was real. So next week we're going to continue. We're going to stay in the allow your grief phase for several weeks. So the topic that we are planning on introducing next week is how to process the pain without it taking over your life.
And this one matters because of exactly what I hit this week, right? That wall. Once you start naming this stuff, it comes up. Okay, and if you don't have a way to hold it, it can take the whole day down with it. All right. Next week we give you a container simple way to open the grief, feel it, and close it again, so you can feel what you need to feel and still show up for your life and function.
Yeah, I can't imagine what this last week would have been like with you here. You're taking on a new job, you're clear across the country, we're away from you, and then having that come up in your within you, that grief, if you hadn't learned the tools and techniques that you've been able to get through this huge grief. So I just can't imagine it. So I appreciate all the work that you have done, because our lives would be a lot bigger mess than what we've got right now, without the work that you've done. So anyway, for next week, make sure that you subscribe and you turn on the notifications so you don't miss it. If you know anybody who's carrying loss, bring them with you next week. We're going to be here. Were you going to say something, John? I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, without all the work I've done that you just briefly described, I'd be looking for some way to suppress that grief.
Yeah.
And not feel it.
Yeah.
I did that for years.
Yeah.
That's what would be happening. I would have never made it through 3 years ago without doing that.
Mm-mm. I agree. And it's like I had a front seat to that stage there for a few years. So I'm very, very grateful that you did the work and that you worked through some of those challenges, so that when this did happen in our lives, you weren't destroyed by it. And that's one of the things that we want, that's why we're talking about these things and bringing them to this channel and taking them into the exit generation in those breakouts and stuff. So
there's a lot more I could say about that, but
yeah,
that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
In a good way.
So before we close, I thought I would leave you with this. I used to listen to this song a lot when I was going through the cancer journey. I had to address a lot of grief during that journey. And like I said earlier, music was one way that really, really helped me to process it and to get to the point where I could actually release it. And so I thought that this part of the song really resonated and related to this discussion that we're having tonight. So it comes from the song Rise Up. And it's like, when the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting harder to breathe, I'll rise up in spite of the ache.
Yeah. So not after the ache, but in spite of it. Mm-hmm. Right? Take a breath with that. Right? Let that sink in.
Yeah. I love that song.
So that's what we got for you tonight. You showed up. Appreciate it. Awesome. And that's the work. Whatever this week took out of you, however heavy you walked in here, you came. You showed up. And that matters more than you think, more than you know.
Yeah. So a few ways to stay connected are right there on your screen. The community at theexitgeneration.org. Support the show at ko-fi.com/deservingly you. Every bit helps us keep showing up for you. And our Monday breakout inside the Exit Generation on Facebook, we go on Mondays. That's where those real conversations keep going.
So again, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And that's what we got.
All right.
Please like, share, subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you too for trusting this space with whatever you're carrying in your life and whatever you carried tonight. And if it is helpful, if it was helpful, like John said, please share and subscribe and hit like, and all that fun jazz. So,
Yeah.
so anyway,
Help us get the 100 subscribers. We're right there. Just these little milestones. It's not about numbers, but we just want to get it out to people who need to hear it. And please come find us inside the Exit Generation, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.